I need a little jingle for here's Matty's Money Corner. Here we go.
Well,
Okay, Matty, what's
that's
going
enough.
on with
That's
CPI?
enough, Ash. That's enough.
Never let Ash choose the music, okay?
Yeah.
So I think with the recent CPI print and it coming in a little bit hotter than expected, Mr. Amuchastegi's predictions are becoming more and more in line with what the market is showing. There might not be any rate cuts in 2024. So with that being said, I'm curious to kick it back over to you guys. My opinion is they can't keep money this expensive for that long. They're going to cut at some point this year. Maybe it gets pushed back in a little further into Q3. I still am of the camp that they're going to do probably 3 to 4 cuts this year. How aggressive and how quick they're going to do those, I think time will tell over the next couple months here. But I'm curious now, Aaron, what your thoughts are based on where CPI print is coming in.
They've actually done a great job. I think the only thing they should have done was raise faster at the beginning and then not give people predictions on what they were going to do next. It's killed a bunch of my businesses, but I think they've done a great job with inflation.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another lively, exciting episode of the King's Table podcast. My name is Ashish Nathu. I am the Sultan of Sofas. I'm joined here by my good friends, Matty Atchison, the one and only hero of hospitality. Of course, Aaron Amuchastegi, the trend spotter himself, with some hopefully fun trends he's going to share with us today. And of course, the sage, the one and only Mike Ayala with that new sunshiny tan. Mikey, you look so handsome today, my friend.
I didn't really tan. I was kidding.
Just kidding. Well, super excited, to all the audience. Apologize that we missed a week last week. We're really trying to stay consistent. I think it was the maybe only week we've ever missed, but we had crossed some schedules and we had a real estate Rockstars mastermind meeting last week, and a few of us were traveling, and so we will try to catch up with that by sharing some of the things that we've been working on over the last few weeks. But again, I want to highlight that you can find our podcast on YouTube, on all our social media platforms, and also all of the audio only platforms like Spotify and Apple. And I want to go back to our YouTube because our YouTube continues to get really great comments. And we're starting to see that our listener base and our views are just increasing there, and our subscriptions are increasing. We passed the 300 mark, guys. Super exciting. Thank you for everyone for pushing us over that limit. Cody keeps listening to us. Debbie has some great comments that we're going to go ahead and process here in a second. And of course, Mike Cade was so sad when he logged in on Friday and didn't see one of our podcasts being launched. So Mike, apologize for that, my friend. But here we are again, back at it this week. So just really excited to get into some of these topics. I'm actually going to turn it right over to Mooch. Mooch, we had some comments here in the chat from last week's YouTube episode, and you can see it here in the chat too. So I'll let you address some of these questions and comments, and then kind of just start us off by, we have a good docket today, but let's start off with sort of what happened in the mastermind last week. What were the key takeaways? What were the lessons? What did you, what is worth sharing with the audience on what are the trends and what's going on?
Yeah. What are the trends?
Damn good seeing you guys. Damn good being back. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Next year when I host the event, we're going to have to record one live at the event, even if some of us are remote or you guys coming in. It was really cool to get our real estate rockstar, my annual real estate rockstar event, my mastermind I host in Austin. And it was really cool about how many of our King's Table listeners were there, and Debbie stood up and just told everybody, hey, if you aren't listening to the Real Estate Rockstars, to the King's Table podcast, then you are missing out, because so much of the stuff that I do on there is like data and trends when I speak at the event. And she said, I listen every week. I can't wait for it to come out, and it makes me feel so much smarter. And so I don't know if we can track our subscribers. I imagine 40 or 50 people subscribed at the same time when we were sitting there and said, hey, you got to join, you got to follow our YouTube page. and subscribe. And so it was really cool to see the impact. So I know you guys are seeing it in the comments, but I got to hear it from tons of people. But then perhaps the coolest comment was from Michael Cater when he said the entire internet yesterday when a new King's Table podcast didn't drop with his teary eye. And it was, you know, it was symbolic, you know, and I told him, I'm sorry, you know, I commented back and said, I'm so sorry we were there because, you know, all of us have our own podcasts. That's how we were able to launch this one. And so I know that some of our listeners are from each of our podcasts. And so it was, you know, we will not miss next year at the event time as we go through. Man, it was a great event to get people in from all over the US. I think it really showed here's a really random thing. Half the people are, and they're all real estate agents. Half the people, their business is way down, like way down. Half the people, their business is way up, like way up. They're just crushing. And so the people that are crushing it the most are actually agents that just started in the last few years.
Interesting.
Right? And so, yeah, they've been able to, and the trend that I saw with that was people that have really embraced the technology, gone all in on technology. And so like one of the really cool tactics that was shared was just, you know, the tactics of building out a YouTube page for agents, but the guy finished his talk. Like, I guess a lot of you guys have probably had a bad year in the last year, but I've sold more houses than I ever had. And they all came from YouTube. They all came from people messaging him saying, will you help me buy a house? Or will you help me list a house? So the people that aren't doing stuff just the same old way, that are doing stuff the new way, are succeeding. Man, some guys showed these really crazy, like built out technologies and like integrations with Chat GPT and integrations with Zapier where they could like one person could fill out a form and it was like this custom made CRM that would like send the email, send the text, you know, then they get something else and it would customize conversations by pulling them from Chat GPT. It was pretty wild. Like, and he like hit a button and then it said it shot off like, here's the 120 things the system like just did or is doing. And so, and I'm not an expert in that. I'm going to have him come on and do another Zoom call with our Rockstar people and kind of go into more detail of how. But I think it just shows there's lots of cool technology out there that's helping push it. It also another thing we got from it was real estate was hyper local. A couple of things that stood out the most to me though was, and I think that maybe is probably a good way to start us off. So Matt King spoke. We all know Matt. Matt is the CEO of GoBundance. It was really cool to have him speak. What was even cooler when he started out his podcast, like his presentation, he showed a picture of him and Pat Hyben while they were recording the very first Real Estate Rockstars podcast in like 2015, 2016, when Matt was like his intern, like because he had met him on a bus and read his book. And so it was pretty symbolic to see him, you know, showing a picture of him and Pat recording the very first Real Estate Rockstars podcast. And Matt was just this young little guy, didn't know what he was doing. And now Matt is a bear of a man. He is super, super skilled in so much stuff. And he's the CEO of GoBundance and also just crushing the speech. One of the things he said was, right now, reach up as high as you can. And we can do it seated. We don't have to stand, but anyone that's listening, right? Reach up as high as you can. I'm saying high as you can, right? And some people got up on the chair, right? So I see Ash doing it. I see Mike doing it. Now, Matty, you're not following along, so you're dead to me. All right. Okay. High as you can, guys, right? Now go higher. Okay. And what is that? So we all did it just now, right? I said high as we can 5 or 6 times. And each time I said it, we went a little higher. And I said, now even higher. And all of us had a little bit more to give, right? That was really symbolic to me, right? When it's like, so what is one of the ways that we succeed right now? Like, you know, it's so sad when someone says, I did everything I could.
Find that extra 2 millimeters, baby.
Right. They go, I did everything I could. And you're like, but did you do everything that you could? So I just thought that was a really symbolic act. One of the things that Cody, so that's one thing that I hope is a quick lesson for us out there as we're thinking about how we do our lives. Another part of it. So Cody Sanchez, she's blown up everywhere. We've talked about her before. If you don't know her name, then you're under a rock. So, but Cody is a rock star. She's doing great. I love that she came out to speak to my group. And she said, the world needs more builders. The world needs more entrepreneurs. And the coolest thing she said is they call it the like the American dream, right? Succeeding as an entrepreneur, like having a nice house, being able to make money, being able to like eat good food. Like, so what is the American dream? Like the American dream is success, right? But she said, it is called the American dream. It is not the American promise. It is not the American entitlement. It is not what you get for living in America, right? It is the American dream, which means you can do it. And we've all shown that no matter what, people can succeed here. But just by being here doesn't make you succeed, right? So it's the American dream, not the American promise. We talk a lot about entitlement. One of the things that got kind of shared last week, shout out to Calvin. He recorded a clip of our podcast to share on his Instagram last week, where we were talking about like the housing shortage is not really a housing shortage, but it's probably like some of the entitlement. It's the people saying like, hey, yes, I can afford this house for $600 a month, but I want a nicer one. Right. And we were talking about that. So I just thought those few things were probably really impactful. There were ones that stuck out to me that I was taking notes on. There's obviously kind of lots more, takeaways and trends that we went through. We talked a lot about the commissions getting deregulated. We talked a lot about, trends and obviously like using AI to help with things. And then we did some like social media challenges and things like that. Our buddy Brian Lubin just hit 250,000 followers on Instagram. That's a big deal. And he made a little post about it. And he said, so I'm just going to keep on posting one video a day and see if I get to 1 million. Because people say like, how'd you get to 250,000?
I remember when that guy had like 400 followers.
Exactly. And at that time he did 2 videos a day. But like, what did he do? Just make sure he posted 2 videos a day. Some of them were great. Some of them sucked. Some if they didn't perform, he would take them down right away. But it was just the consistency. And we talk about like, what does it take? Like the American dream, not the American promise. But it's funny how simple some of that is. Like he has built his business around his social media following and his podcast. And that really grew because he posted 2 reels a day.
Yeah.
And he just never stopped and he hasn't missed a day yet. So, and and all
his content is good.
His content's good. It's gotten better. Like it wasn't always good. We're flicking like it wasn't always good, right? But we're not good at anything. When we first get started, I recorded a quick video about that on Instagram the other day too, about how the other part about the Rockstars conference that was great, right? Is people that came, and we've had stories every year of somebody that says, I was down and out and I was losing in my life and I wasn't making any money. And I started listening to your podcast and now I'm successful and now I'm making money. And they start crying and they get pictures with me and they say, I couldn't have done it without the podcast. And we're sitting here and we're like, we got 334 subscribers. One of our videos only got 230 views and we can get really discouraged. And I was doing a shout out to all the creators out there and all the people that are listening too. And I said, when I first started doing podcasts, I sucked at it. I also did say, some of my friends probably say that I still suck at it, like Matty. But the reality is just keep producing content, just keep pushing, because if you change one life, it is like all worth it. And I guarantee that you will. So whether you're posting one social media post a day or you're doing your own podcast, it's just the way that it works. So thanks for giving me a few minutes to actually talk about what came out of it. There's a few big lessons, but at the end of it, it's like, you don't give up. You keep trying no matter what. You keep being consistent with whatever you're doing. And you can get discouraged because it wasn't the American promise that this was going to work. It's the American dream. So keep trying.
I love it. I'd love to hear what some of the guys think about some of that. Matty?
Well, for the record, I did not say you suck at podcasting. I think you are amazing, brother. I'm a cheerleader of Aaron Amuchastegui, not a hater. I was looking at, it's interesting that you brought that up regarding the American dream. I saw this. This is one of my favorite accounts that I follow for data on all things economy, statistics. Can you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys heard of Unusual Whales?
Yeah. You shared this on the pod a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. But look at this. The American dream now costs $3.4 million. When you think about all of the things that we as individuals go through, right? Whether it's common milestones, including marriage, children, homes, healthcare, cars, education. This is essentially the average of what it costs to unlock the American dream nowadays, which for most people, that is extremely expensive because if you see down here, the average lifetime earnings of Americans across all education levels on average is approximately 2.3 million. So we're talking about a delta of, $1 million plus, $1.25 million essentially, or $1.2 million that people are short on. So now all of a sudden you got people really starting to rethink where their priorities are at, where their time, their money, their energy should be spent, because this is becoming really unattainable for a lot of people. So I think this culture shift is something that is tying into how people are moving and acting and, spending differently nowadays. But at the same time, I think it's really important what you just said, Aaron, which is the fact that, at the end of the day, I think we can all design what we want our American dream or our version of an American dream to look like and create a plan for it, but you got to go out and get it, right? You got to go out and work your butt off every single day. And so I just thought that was an interesting kind of point that you brought up there, right? Because people think just because they come here and it's the land of the free that it's going to be given to you. And that's what one has, I think not made our, our country is so great because of it being something that you have to earn, but it's ultimately something that, the playing field is open for anybody to go and get that if they want it bad enough. And that's why we love talking about that kind of stuff here on the show, is to help people design what that, that life looks like for themselves.
Yeah.
I love capitalism.
Yeah.
One of the things I put in the chat earlier, and one of what I loved everything you said, Mooch. I feel like the entitlement thing is definitely real. I think the strong survive. Capitalism always wins. And the people that are going after it, if you put in the work and you keep the consistency and all the things we talk about here and all of our individual podcasts also, I think the odds and probabilities are in your favor because there's so many people that are just not doing those things. One of the things I'm processing now is, and I'm in this like theme of using a lot of sports analogies in my life right now, everywhere, even though I don't watch a lot of sports, but how do you win 2 Super Bowls in a row? So I think what I'm learning is a lot of people like look for the one big win. And then after they win, how do you win twice?
Yeah.
And then what, like, cause it's so easy to say, oh, well, but like all the failures after season 1, like, oh, but it doesn't matter. Like we won. And you're not looking at the tapes. You're not getting better. And you have to remember that everyone can see what you did to win that championship. And so winning 1 championship is super hard, but to win 2 in a row, then to win 3 in a row and 4 in a row. So I'm talking about this a lot in our company, and even myself is like, what assumptions am I making that I have to get rid of? And how do you like keep building that mental resilience of finding that next, which I love what you just said, is like, how do you find that extra 2 millimeters, right? F1 races are won by 0.01 second.
Yeah.
And so just because you won one season doesn't mean you're going to win the next, because you could lose by 0.01 second. And so how are you always looking for that extra 0.01 second, which is like almost binary in this world sometimes. So I love using sports analogies because I think it relates to people. People get it. But yeah, Mikey, you're thinking there. What's showing up for you?
Well, the first thing was the American dream, and I was just doing the math, and I was thinking, so Tim, one of my sons was one of our producers, and I was looking at the cost to raise a child, and it's $283,000. And the other day I accidentally ordered some hair cream on Amazon and charged it to Tim's card. And he called and he called fraud on me. Like he was texting the whole group and saying that like there was a fraud charge on his card. And so when I saw the 283,000, I was like, man, He actually owes me a lot more.
Dude owes
Been
me a lot
saying,
of
yeah,
money.
he should have been saying, Tim, why haven't you put thank you in the chat when you saw that it cost
I'm just
284,000?
I'm just harassing Tim, but no, like, I mean, it's just such an interesting point when you look at all of this and just tying it back together. Like, and I have a couple of thoughts on Aaron's Rockstars too, but the whole idea of capitalism, and Ashish, you saying that you love capitalism, I was just thinking as I was listening to all of that, and it's such, just to kind of loop this all together, it's truly just a mindset issue. And what I was thinking about is, you know, where Aaron started with the Rockstars conversation, and that is the importance of things like what Aaron built there, or the communities that we're involved in. Because when you look at, you know, Matty's comment about the American dream, and Ash, you talking about loving capitalism, it's truly like, actually everybody would love capitalism if they understood it. And if they don't understand it, and if they're not winning, then it's because they haven't had the mindset shift. They haven't had their awakening yet. It's the only way, really, at the end of the day. But I was actually, as I was listening to you say that, Ashish, like, there was a part of me that got kind of, you know, sad for people that haven't had their awakening. And then just thinking about just seeing Aaron lit up. You know, I mean, he was obviously just, you know, super inspired coming off of the event. And that's the importance of these things. And then what I was thinking too, because Aaron said he's going to cap it at a certain number. Aaron, did you pre-sell next year? Because if you're going to cap it, like, people should have pre-bought that.
We sold
And
half the
you're-
tickets for next year the day that we closed the event. We said it was like, hey, we're capping, and half the people bought for next year already.
But it's just such a powerful thing, because I think everything that all of you said, watching Aaron's excitement, and then, you know, Matty just bringing up the American dream and building on that, and Ash bringing it back to capitalism, everybody has the same opportunity, really. I mean, I grew up in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, single wide home there. And it's like, you know, but you see all these people, the entitlement philosophy and mindset, and it's so deeply rooted in it. But there's a part of me that feels for them, because they just don't know and they don't understand. And the only way through it really is mindset shift. And Aaron, you telling the story about Matt King and who he is today. Like, if you talk to anybody that's successful, they have a story like that. And so I'm just really inspired at the end of the day, because it really is about mindset, community, growth. And that's why once you figure that out, it never stops. That's why we don't stop continuing to grow. And Ash, one thing that I was thinking about when you were chatting too is, like, you know, just every single one of us hit a ceiling when you were talking about winning the second time. The reason why people don't win twice is because they celebrate and then they stay wherever that was.
That's right.
And it's like, there's another mountain to climb. And so the process never ends, and people need to understand that. And we need to understand that, because we hit these highs, and then what we tend to do is camp there. There's actually a scripture in the Bible when, I think it was Peter, James, and John, they're like up on the mountain, and they're like, can we just build a temple here? Because it was like this amazing place, and we have these mountaintop experiences. And what do we want to do? We want to build a shrine. You know, hey, we won the Super Bowl ring, right? And so we want to, like, memorialize that. But then this can be considered a negative trait in high performers. And I'm guessing everybody on this call probably relates to that, or on the podcast. I've been accused of not celebrating enough.
Yeah. I'm sure we all do that.
Yeah, well, that's like a trait of high performers. It's like, celebrate what? Like, we got to keep moving. I've had to learn to stop and celebrate a little bit, but the reality is we shouldn't camp there. Like, celebrate the win and freaking move on, because that's why you don't win a second Super Bowl, is because you camp there and then we don't go back to work. And so I was just like, I don't know, I was just reflecting as you guys were all talking about this. And Matty, I just love, everybody has the same ability. Like, none of us are trust fund babies, and most trust fund babies don't succeed anyway.
Yep.
And so it's really doing your own work and realizing that you've got to just keep climbing that next mountain. Because I was thinking about this as you were saying it too. And I used to hunt a lot in northeastern Nevada, and you'd be surprised, like, you'd work your butt off to get to the top of a peak so you could look over, and then you look over and what is it? It's another freaking peak. And that's life, man.
That's
life.
Well, I think there's a lot of power in personal accountability, and knowing that if I can own this and I can take full accountability and responsibility for it, then I can keep climbing. And I think that's what we're talking about is we need people to wake up to how much responsibility and accountability each person can actually have in making a difference in their own outcome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all of success is a choice at the end of the day, right? Like hard
Yeah.
work is a choice, attitude is a choice, discipline is a choice, doing the extra is a choice, like creating excellence in your life. It's a choice. There's no shortcuts to success. You have to work for it. I mean, I was talking about with somebody the other day when we were out at a mastermind in Colorado this week, and we were just talking about how everybody's going through something hard. And like marriage is hard, so is divorce. You know, choose your hard. Obesity is hard, so is being fit. Choose your hard, right? Like being in debt is hard. Well, so is having financial discipline to create abundance and financial freedom and managing properties and managing a business. Choose your hard. Like communication is hard. Not communicating is hard, right? Like you could go through any part of life that is a pillar or a building block of success and find a duality of something on either side of that will still create some hard in your life, right? Life will never be easy, but you can choose your hard. So you might as well choose it with something that's ultimately aligned with the outcomes that you want. I'm tired of hearing people play the victim card and the entitlement card like it's supposed to be easy, like they are deserving of it. And it's, you know, the question I always ask is based on whatever you want, what does it take to earn the right to get that? Because there's a formula, there's stepping stones to getting there. There's an equation for that will unlock whatever that is for you. But most people that have the most success that many of us have, you know, in culture and society, you know, identified as success, they've probably experienced the most hard path to getting there. Not easy. I mean, yeah, there's some caveats and some, you know, unique situations there, but I would say the majority of people who have unlocked the most impact, the most success, the most financial freedom, they're the people who have probably been through the hardest paths. And most people just don't understand what that hard is because they're choosing a different hard.
All right. I got to read one thing really quick, Ash, and then we got to
then let's
jump
get
in.
to move. Yep.
So a guy he was my counselor. He's for a lot of different things earlier in my life. He lives out in California. He posted a thing yesterday. He said, most of my clients are high-level executives in Silicon Valley or business owners. I've learned so much from them, but here's a predictable pattern. They were an unusually smart kid in a place where that wasn't valued, usually a smallish town. Usually have an obsessive focus on learning or building things. 2, they get bullied a lot for their intelligence and often for being poor, which leads to a deep unconscious desire to have enough freedom to escape these situations as an adult. 3, they usually find their people later in life, like college or just sometime after high school. And then 4, their deep desire for freedom and autonomy, which is ultimately the ability to choose who you surround yourself with, and their unusual skill leads them to climb the corporate ladder or build a successful business. And 5, they end up being infinitely more successful than the bullies of their youth. And he says a few other things, but he's seen the pattern a million times. And as I read that, I thought, yes. And so we talk about the entitlement problem. You know, I remember getting bullied for different things. I remember not standing out. I remember that. And as it hit that, just in general, like, you know, and some people are like, wait, my kid needs to be bullied to be successful. No, but we didn't have the entitlement stuff. So, anyway, I thought that was a cool way to start it off. You know, guys, thanks.
Love it. Great
thanks for letting me do it.
Well, we got to be warriors. The world ain't going to deal with us if we're not warriors. So let's make it happen. Let's pivot to some very much more fun discussions about CPI in Matty's Money Corner of the Week. Matty, tell us
Can we get like
about
some cool like music that segues us in?
I need a little jingle.
Dude,
Well,
I was hanging out with some
welcome back to
DJs this week and said they need to give us some background music. So we'll do that for Matty's Money Corner
I
first.
need a little jingle for here's Matty's Money Corner. Here we go.
Well,
Okay, Matty, what's
that's
going on
enough.
with
That's
CPI?
enough, Ash. That's enough.
Never let Ash choose the music, okay?
Yeah.
So I think with the recent CPI print and it coming in a little bit hotter than expected, Mr. Amuchastegi's predictions are becoming more and more in line with what the market is showing. I saw that, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said for quite some time that inflation is transitory. It's not going to be sticky. And as of today, she said that she regrets saying that inflation was transitory, because it's not, and it's sticking around a little bit higher and longer than people had expected. And JP Morgan Chase's CEO, Jamie Dimon, came out this week and said that, the US Fed should wait past June before cutting rates, and has noted that, the surge in debt and equity markets is also, starting to show some bubble-like characteristics. So this idea that, one, March cuts completely off the table. June, which was much higher, those cuts have even dropped the probability, I think below 50% right now. I'd have to pull that chart back up. But with, core CPI coming in at 3.8 versus the 3.7 expected, it's not anything overly concerning. They're not going to raise rates or do anything like that, in my opinion. That being said, I think they're being a little bit more cautious now with, what they're saying they're going to do. And I even saw, not that this matters, but per CNN, the U.S. economy is so strong that there might not be any rate cuts in 2024. So with that being said, I'm curious to kick it back over to you guys. My opinion is they can't keep money this expensive for that long. They're going to cut at some point this year. Maybe it gets pushed back in a little further into Q3. I still am of the, camp that they're going to do probably 3 to 4 cuts this year. How aggressive and how quick they're going to do those, I think time will tell over the next, couple quarters or a couple months here. But I'm curious now, Aaron, what your thoughts are based on where CPI print is coming in and inflation still being pretty sticky, how the Fed is going to respond in the FOMC this month and what they might say, and ultimately what that might foreshadow for rate cuts here in the second half of the year.
Yeah. Anything happened with the stock market after this came out? They probably adjusted down a little bit. I think we talked about it last time. I would guess that we probably had a slow stock market day. I think it's been tearing for a couple of days, but yesterday we had a low day, and maybe it was based on some of those stats coming in because they'd already priced it in. I would say my quick reply on that is I think that's exactly what we thought would happen. Now there is that other, and what I told my guys at the Rockstars event is like, so I will not be surprised if rates are the same at the end of the year than they are now. But the actual advice I could give people is like, so run your business as if this is the way that it is, and find your pivot and work harder and find the way to make it work today. And if we do get a little bit cheaper money, well, then it's even better, right? Like then maybe then it'll make some of your stuff a little bit easier, but that's more like, did it snow while we were building the house, or did we get a good weather year to make it build, so we could build it faster and cheaper? So I still stick with my idea that I don't think they should be lowering. That my opinion is probably that they won't be lowering, because I think the inflation is just going to keep staying up, and it's going to make them hard for it. And people say, well, what about election year? I don't know if the Fed is really going to control election year. I mean, if it gets lowered, there's a better chance that Biden gets reelected. If it stays high, there's a better chance that Trump gets elected. I just don't think that the Fed is going to play that game either. So I don't really think election year is going to make an impact, although that's like the conspiracy theory that's always out there in the world for stuff. The one point that I thought was interesting was you said they can't keep it this high for very long because there'd be plenty of businesses that continue to struggle. I think that because the tech companies are doing so well, it's really offsetting the pain that we're feeling in the real estate companies. I think that maybe not just is it expensive right now to get rates, but not just is it more expensive, it's tougher to get the loans right now, and the cap rates and the LTVs required make it impossible to refinance. So I think that something that they could do before they would do major rates is they could adjust the requirements. They could raise the LTVs. They could say, hey, we could do a 90% LTV now instead of an 80%. LTV as a standard to help save some of these people that got 20% corrections because of cap rates because they haven't done anything wrong, and keep rates high and just change the LTVs and understand these have already come down 30% in value. So maybe it feels a little bit riskier, but then that's priced in. That could be something they could do sooner. They could encourage banks to start getting, more lending out there. But I think there's things they can do before lowering of the rates. Man, I can't wait for them to lower rates, but I think it's too many businesses are just crushing. I do think they're going to wait until they see CPI stay below 2 for like 3 months. And I don't think that's going to happen before the end of the year.
I was going to say, I don't think it's going to get anywhere close to 2% by the end of the year, to be honest, but I do think they're going to cut rates even with that. I mean, the concern that they have to navigate, right, is a melt up. They start cutting rates, and all of a sudden this influx of capital continues to go after a shortage of inventory in whatever, industry we're talking about. And all of a sudden you get things off and running again, and inflation goes even crazier because of that. So they're really tightroping a challenging spot here of, keeping the economy rolling and strong and stable without, letting inflation run away from them again.
Yeah. They've actually done a great job. I think the only thing they should have done was raise faster at the beginning and then not give people predictions on what they were going to do next. It's killed a bunch of my businesses, but I think they've done a great job with inflation. What was tearing.
Fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
I love Mike loves Matty's. Mike goes, it doesn't matter. Just move along.
No, you know what?
It's a good chart, Matt.
It actually doesn't matter.
It doesn't not matter.
Well, so it only not matters if you're not paying attention.
I'm just teasing.
Because again, at the end of the day, like I mean, obviously what Matty reported is spot on, but I love what Aaron was just saying too, because there's one thing that I've been like, I don't think that they're going to drop rates. I actually think that we're in a new normal.
I don't think so either.
I love what you said, Aaron, about just get used to it, because we spent like a decade on cheap. We were drunk on cheap money. That's what I've said all along. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because so much has changed. And one of the things with, the Fed's mandate and even where, the government, and we talked about this probably 10 or 15 episodes ago, but the reality is it was really important back in the day for the government to try to keep rates low, because their interest on debt goes up. But when we talked about this again a long time ago, the government's not paying their debt off, nor is the government ever going to pay their debt off. So this thing's going to continue on until it doesn't continue on anymore. And so I think, Aaron, what you said that I really loved is like when you told your people at Real Estate Rockstars, like, just get used to it, run your business based on what it is today. Because if we get better, something better than what you expected, at least you've like kind of mitigated, okay,
it's all
current
upside
state scenario or a worst case scenario. And I've actually been thinking about this a little bit. I was pondering this yesterday morning. I actually think that even real estate, the one thing that I've been Matty, what you said about, I mean, if they drop rates too far, we have a meltdown. Because if you drop rates and there's this like crazy influx of people that come back into the market, they know this. They're not stupid. Like, people are going to start chasing real estate, and there's not enough of it anyway. And I saw Aaron's Instagram post this morning about, there's plenty of inventory out there. Well, maybe. And Aaron, I think you're spot on, but you were talking about the entitlement problem. So yeah, there's a lot of real estate out there that's available, but people just haven't come to terms with where they want to live and getting used to the type of house that we can buy. Kara and I were looking at houses last week, and I was literally talking to her because we bought a house in Gilbert, Arizona, a 5,800 square foot house in 2019 that was a beautiful home for $978,000, and I sold it in 2021 for almost 1.8 million. And now I'm looking at houses that are way smaller than that. They're half the price or half the size, and way more than that. And I was like, man, houses are just so expensive. And I immediately checked myself, because houses are not expensive. The purchasing power of the dollar has just freaking imploded. And this is really not an asset problem. It's a purchasing power problem. And when you look at what the government just did from 21, well, and it started before that, but really 2020 to 2022, and the amount of capital that was put into the system, we're not going backwards. This is not going back to where it was. And the final thought that I want to put on this, when it comes to real estate specifically, one of the biggest problems is the price of real estate versus rents and what people can afford. And this is the thing that we've been wrestling with, and maybe we tackle this in a future episode. But the thought that hit me yesterday morning, and I've thought about this in the manufactured home space for a long time, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What's the basic human need? It's air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. I've always put shelter into that. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, and Aaron, you brought up the S&P 500 and tech companies. I actually think, and we can talk about this in a year and see if I'm off base, but I actually think that one of the issues, I don't think that real estate has a problem. I think we have a short-term problem, but I think real estate's going to continue to thrive. The problem that we have right now is real estate prices have increased faster than people can afford rents or afford to buy. But I actually think what's going to start to happen is that people are going to start focusing on the basic human need, food, water, shelter, and we're going to start cutting everything else out of our lives so that we can afford food, water, and shelter. And real estate's going to do just fine over time. Rents are going to go up. They have to. But people are going to focus on, what are you going to lose first? Are you going to lose your Starbucks? Are you going to lose your iPhone? Are you going to lose your, your travel, your fringe benefits? Aaron, you talk about this all the time, but it takes people a while to adjust to their new life.
Mhm.
People are going to have to, rents are going to go up. Housing prices are going to continue to go up, and people are going to start eliminating the other things from their spending because they have to continue to provide for their food, water, and shelter. So I'm actually, for the last 24 hours, just been thinking about this. We have a short-term problem in real estate as investors, as buyers. It's going to continue to go up, but people are going to have to start cutting other things out of their life, which is a problem for other industries. And I don't think real estate specifically in the long term.
Well, this goes back to the entitlement issue of if your income's not increasing and you're not figuring out a way to make more money, then what are you going to cut? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago too, about how credit card companies are not cutting the limits. And I think since that episode, there has been legislation to push that. I don't know if you saw that, Mikey, where they're trying to limit now how much credit card companies can keep allowing limits to increase. I'd love to take this conversation, Mike, just what you just said at the end there with the plummeting of the value of the dollar, increasing supply, into Bitcoin, and see what you think about that. There's a halving coming up. Bitcoin is just hitting a record of 73,000. There's a lot of news about this right now. The usage of Bitcoin as a functional tool is increasing more and more. Obviously, Bitcoin is not something that can be simply, it by fact cannot be increased in supply, right? And so the price is the highest it's ever been, 73,000. What do you guys see here? Is this an asset you guys are watching? Clearly usage data. I don't know if one of you guys wants to pull up the information from Statistica, but the usage data for Bitcoin as a tool is increasing as well. So
I've got a quick question. Why does the halving matter? Because I understood why it mattered in stocks, right? So if a stock became worth $1,000, it became unaffordable because you had to buy a full stock. You couldn't buy a half a share of Tesla. But with Bitcoin, you can buy a sliver of a Bitcoin. You could say, I want to buy 0.0001.
No, I don't
Bitcoin.
think the halving applies to price. I think halving applies to the
Supply.
So yeah, supply. So Matty, maybe you know this better than I do, but the way that Bitcoin is added to the market in terms of how do you increase supply of Bitcoin, it's like a mathematical formula, and it's done by machines. And the halving process halves the value. So the same amount of work only creates half of the amount of supply. So if yesterday, whatever the metrics are, 1,000 kilowatts of energy creates 0.01%, now it creates half of that with the same amount of energy. And so the halving process sort of curves the supply over long periods of time. And I think it stops halving in a little bit, like maybe in the next 5 or 10 years.
It does the opposite of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not discretionary. I don't think it's discretionary. I think it's all mapped out. It's all mapped out on what happened. So the supply is fixed. Elon is Satoshi.
Having
I'm
I think
convinced.
Dan Nunny come on and share his insights would be interesting.
We should totally have Dan come on and talk
Yeah.
Bitcoin. He's
We
one
need,
of our.
we need to have somebody come on that knows this topic.
Yeah, he's obsessed
I mean,
with it.
I just think it's wild that it's on a tear. Like just seeing the pricing really go and try to figure out what's next. But it's also been holding for like it went up to 60,000 a Bitcoin, and then it went down to like 20, 30 and kind of just stayed there for a while. It took years to get back to 60. Years. And so now figuring out what's next. But yeah, we definitely need to bring an expert on for that.
Well, I also want to touch on the interest rate thing, because for me, you guys, we talk a lot about real estate on this podcast, but every single one of my Vistage guys who's running a non-real estate company is just crushing it. Mikey, I don't know in your circles as well, non-real estate companies, man, every single business owner that I know is just crushing it. So what is the incentive for the government to lower interest rates just for real estate companies? I just don't see it.
Well, I think Matty hit on it earlier. I mean, it's not there. The government would never look at lowering interest rates just for real estate. They're just threading a needle.
Yep.
We're in a new era where I actually, if they were 100% honest, the Fed would probably say that 2% inflation is not the target anymore. I know they already said that, we're upping that, but the reality is, like, I don't think they care like they did at one point in time, because they're never going to pay off their debt. And so it's not negative for the government. And until other countries and people don't buy the US debt, there's no incentive for them to do that. Now, if it gets to a point, and obviously interest rates are higher, and so, why wouldn't you? But yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with real estate. I don't think they're even looking at real estate. I think it's about controlling. What Matty said about the melt up is a super important point, because they're just trying to keep pricing in this range, like just not too low, not too high. I think we're in a new era.
I love it. All right, well, let's talk about a new thing that literally just happened like an hour ago. I want to talk about TikTok and see what you guys are thinking about this, why this is important or not to our democracy, to business, to commerce, to capitalism in America. What does this mean on the greater stage? The House just voted to ban TikTok. 352 in support, 65 opposing. It still has to go to the Senate. Biden has said that if it crosses his desk, he'll pass it. Basically, this bill says that TikTok has to divest of the company to a non-Chinese owned company within the next 6 months if this thing passes. Doesn't seem like there's anything in the way. That's a pretty overwhelming support. And I think the Senate is going to follow that same history. So why is this important to capitalism? Does America have an obligation to protect this? Should we be protecting capitalism where we're free trade, free commerce? Do we have a responsibility to protect its citizens and decide what we should and should not do here anymore? Obviously, on the other side of the ocean, Facebook, Google, many other social media apps are not accepted and allowed in China, specifically between US and China. And so TikTok is a Chinese-owned company. I don't know if it specifically is CCP controlled, but either way, it is a parent company of a Chinese-owned entity. So love the talk and the discussion going on. What do you guys think?
I'll jump if nobody's ready to jump. I think it's really, really wild. And I think it's wild for a few different reasons. I didn't realize that China didn't let, Facebook be in China, and some of that. So I think that is probably a really interesting point, and maybe the most interesting point with it for me, because when I see it, like, I think, so as far as the government goes, they're saying it's for political reasons or for safety or for things like that. But it's kind of a lot like when Russia and the Ukraine started fighting and we just took Russian assets. the US just like took millions of dollars that was in bank accounts so they could say it was by suspected people, you know, that like were Russian residents and they were involved in the Ukraine war and other stuff. So it's like, what's the word if you like take somebody's house you could build a bridge over? Eminent domain. What they are doing, the government is doing with TikTok is they're trying to do eminent domain. They're like, hey, you know what? We think you've done really, really good with this, but we're going to try to take it. And they're using, you know, the reason of it being Chinese owned. I think it's a BS thing. They make our phones anyway. Like I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think that it's really protecting anything. I think it's a business related thing. I think it's saying, hey, this business does so well. We want to take control over it. If an American takes over TikTok, they're not going to change the privacy laws. They're just going to be owners of TikTok now. So it's not like they're going to make it healthier and safer for us. And I would actually say it's like totally wrong and we shouldn't do it, except for the fact that if China doesn't let all of our social media and companies like that into China, then I guess it's fair game to do. So I don't know. I just, yeah, I don't think there's really a cause other than a financial one. I think it's a wholehearted financial cause. And the only thing that gives me pause on that opinion was that last thing that Ash said about it.
I think it's kind of the Trojan horse is we're saving our children, you know, from all of the toxicity of TikTok, when at the end of the day, this toxicity is on every social platform, Chinese parent company owned or not. So I think there, like Aaron said, is a lot more to this. I mean, even Trump came out and said, who is obviously very oppositional to all things CCP, said, I think this is a bad idea. I think at the end of the day, this just funnels all of the power right over to Facebook, to Instagram, to Google, and further monopolizes form of free expression to some companies that have already showed that they're willing to do some pretty shady stuff. And so do I think that, you know, it's very telling that China has a completely different algorithm for their youth and what is being pumped through that platform over there versus a completely different algorithm for all the crap that is being pumped and pushed into the minds of its users in the US. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And there's something to be said for that. But I also think that at the end of the day, when you start limiting forms of free expression, like that's up to parents, that's up to individuals, to police, and to navigate those terrains. I'm not going to go and send my kids, you know, to some dangerous environment in the physical world. And that is my responsibility to protect them and to lead them and to guide them, just like it is in the social world. So I think it's really interesting to see how this is starting to play out. And there's going to be I think a major uproar and more damage done by banning it, even though I'm not a fan of TikTok at all, than there is by allowing individuals the autonomy to navigate these platforms and spaces like they have the freedom to do, and all of these other platforms that are just as toxic, you know, if not even worse.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the unintended consequences of this on how companies operate and what this does. I think you cannot ignore, like, I'm not even on TikTok, but like, Mooch, I think you've mentioned your daughter's on TikTok, right? She does business on TikTok. So like, how many people who actually make money on TikTok use it functionally, use it to commerce, things like that, are going to be affected by this? That'd be interesting to find out, right? Like, how many small little businesses are running, doing marketing, doing advertising, etc. I think that, you know, without knowing too much in the details of this actual bill, like, I think you're right. It is a Trojan horse. You can take a handful of situations or bad seeds or things that have happened negatively. People, you know, the way that people are traumatized by doing by using TikTok and say, oh, like, this is why we need to ban it. I think it gets politicized super fast and easily. Have you guys watched these testimonies in Congress? Like, even for a few minutes?
Yeah.
They're not hearings. It's amazing when they bring in these big CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, all these big hotshots. They have a full stack of all these hotshot senators, and they just pound them. And they're only allowed to have yes or no answers to these incredibly complex, nuanced problems.
I watched
They're
the
not
Zuckerberg
interested
one.
in learning. Yeah, it's amazing.
They reamed him.
They
Yeah,
just
yelled at
ream
him the whole time.
Yeah.
And so they're not really hearings. They're not discussions. Nobody's trying to learn anything. Nobody tries to understand. And if you really, I have a couple of friends that work at some big social media companies, and we've talked about this, is if you have 3 billion users in your platform, which Facebook does, 3 billion users, what is the chance that you have 0.00001% that kind of goes on the wayside and does things that you shouldn't be doing, or that don't understand how to use it properly or take it seriously and do harmful things, etc.? We're the freaking population of the world. And so how can you hold these companies accountable for this level of scrutiny? It's just,
It's like
I don't know, it's
blaming the
just
president
theater.
if somebody like shoots somebody in downtown Austin, right? That's
Yeah,
like
it's just
blaming the
theater.
president of the United States for it.
Yeah, it
They're
goes back
allowing
to
it happen.
accountability. I want to tell a quick story really quick. I was playing basketball a week and a half ago. Me and my buddy were just playing around at the park, and these 3 little, like, 11-year-old kids, little punk kids, came up, and they were talking smack, and they were like
Push 'em
drawing
around.
stupid stuff on the walls and stuff, just being young little punk kids in their little razor bikes. And we started making friends and started talking to them and playing basketball. And after we had a good time. And afterwards I started asking these questions like, hey kids, like, what's going on in school? What's going on with all the social media stuff? And how are your teachers? And what's going on with your population? And what's on the minds of you young kids right now? And it was so amazing. One of these kids wants to go to, now I just forgot. What's the big military school? He wants to go to West Point. He
West
wants to
Point,
be a medic in the military and then to be a doctor. Okay. And he was a punk, and this is his aspiration. A couple other kids had really great answers too. And I asked him, oh, is TikTok really as bad as everyone's making? He goes, look, everything is what you make it. This is what this 11-year-old kid said. He goes, everything is what you make it. He's like, all of this is, everybody gets scared, but us kids, we know how to use it. We know what's entertainment. We know what's not entertainment. We know how we should be using it functionally, how we shouldn't be. And they are the generation that has grown up on this. You cannot punish them for that. That's just the generation they live in. Right. So I don't know.
I just think it's silly if people think that the government cares enough that they're doing this to protect us and to protect our country.
Yeah, that's a trick.
I think that is just such a farce, right? Like, at the end of the day, every major global financial powerhouse has a hand in social media networks, because controlling our speech, our thoughts, means controlling the world. It means controlling the way money flows. It means controlling people's actions. And at the end of the day, when you think about what TikTok has done in a lot of ways, it really has democratized a lot of the control that these powerful institutions don't want democratized, right? Like, just look at this is one example, the American entertainment industry. The American entertainment industry is being smashed and devoured by TikTok's ability to expose new artists and creatives to billions all around the world without having to pay a damn cent to any of the overlords who once controlled that monopoly. And you can go down the line of so many different billion-dollar topics and organizations and industries that are becoming democratized through a lot of these things. So they don't want to give that control back over to the Chinese. That is my thought, is right at the underbelly of all of this. It's about money. It's about control. But if people are thinking, oh, the government cares and they want to protect our youth and our citizens, and we're talking about what's going on at the border, we're talking about what's going on with policy inside schoolrooms and classrooms and what they're doing with children and some of the common trends and themes of society and what they're teaching them, TikTok is probably going to fall very low on the government's list of, we need to get this saved for our youth, that we need to, control this because we need to protect our youth.
Well, and I agree with that. And the reality is, like, okay, so I have a couple of thoughts on this. Like, if it's truly just a bill, I mean, it's not like we're going to let China own our ports. We're not going to, if it's truly about protecting like us from a large scale. And by the way, the bill, I haven't read the bill, but I just have two thoughts on it. If it's truly just about China, you have 6 weeks or 9, whatever the period of time is to divest, and that's it, then maybe there is some, maybe I'd be okay with the fact of, like, China should not be having full access to, 75% of our population and all the data and everything else. I mean, we don't give them access to, again, owning our ports and all of that. But Matty, to your point, like, I mean, the reality at the end of the day is, like, I bet you there's all kinds of stuff in this that is not just about China and TikTok specifically.
Right.
When we talk about, because there's been multiple arguments on this, like freedom of speech and protecting all of that. And if you just truly come back to the center of, like, being a true, like, libertarian, like, the government should not be overly involved in anything unless it is, potentially national security. If that's it, and it was purely like a 1-page bill that said, why, like, it wouldn't take very much in a bill to say, China, you can't own part of TikTok and get out. But what are the other things that are buried? What are the other things that are buried in this that's going to, that we're going to be sorry in 6 months or 12 months or 24 months that this got passed? Because, now they look at what happened with, I mean, even, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but, like, with, whether it's elections or anything else, the reality is, okay, it starts with TikTok and maybe it's about China, but what other unintended consequences are getting pushed through here that create future problems? By the way, I agree with Matty 100%. At the end of the day, it's my job as a parent, it's my job as an individual to filter and manage how much time I was actually just talking to a guy a loan broker that we work with, that I've been working with for 7 years, our main loan broker. And he told me the other day, he's like, you need to get your ass off Facebook and start focusing on, some of this other stuff. And I said, listen, I actually said, Ben, I'm hardly ever on Facebook. And this is an assumed thing. Like, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I use social media as a tool, but I'm not consumed by it. And that's really, at the end of the day, where, the rubber meets the road. That's what most capitalists do, by the way. But that's my only concern with all of this is, at the end of the day, if it was truly about China, maybe we should get China out of our business. So, but the reality is, like, they can get the information that they need from somewhere else anyway. So is this going to actually stop?
I think anything? It's political.
No. If it's about China, we would stop them from buying our farmland. We would stop them from owning American businesses. Right? If it's about protecting them from stealing our information, Facebook, Apple, some of them are the biggest culprits of stealing our information, breaching our privacy than any other organizations in the world, right? So I just think that they can't control them. Therefore, the only answer is to ban them.
Yep. Good.
What do you guys think? I'm curious what you think. Do you think that China is going to they're going to ByteDance is going to willingly just sell their shares in this? Or do you think that they're going to just say, piss off? Because that's really what this is about. If they sell their shares, then everything's good.
Yep.
Or does it not pass the Senate? Like, I guess one question is, one, will it pass the Senate? And then two,
there's some hard lobbying going on right now in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, whoever is best in line to buy TikTok is lobbying in the Senate right now. Like, they yelled at Facebook last week, and now Facebook's going to buy it. I actually did watch the part in the hearing where they keep asking the guy, like, where he's from that works for TikTok USA, and he's like,
it was so good.
And it was like, you're from China. He's like, no, I'm not. And they're like, well, what's your last name? And he's like, this. But it was just so back and forth. They're like, you're a Chinese spy. He's like, I was born in the U.S. Like, it was the strangest, like, interaction of, like, really racism and everything else. So will they do it, or will they? No, it's too big of a, they either will just keep it running and see if, like, US servers could actually shut it down, or they'll sell because it's too big of a financial asset to not. Like they could say, all right, we're going to take because their choice would be like, shut down this thing that's making them money because they're mad, or they can sell the American part of what's making them money.
They're also
still
only
get it.
shutting it down in the US. So
Right.
it's not like they're shutting it down the whole world.
Yeah.
And I think that it'd be interesting to see if we can look it up about how much the US market represents in the overall big company. Because I
bet
think maybe this
most
is
of it.
you think so?
Yeah. I think I'm more addicted to it than my daughters are. Like because they grew up with it and they're better at it than I am.
Mm.
So anyway, so my vote is, yeah, if it goes through Senate during the lobbying, they'll sell because it would be stupid. It would be stupid.
If it
not to.
doesn't pass the Senate, we have a problem.
Yeah. Well, then we know it's more about like people just wanted to yell at TikTok for election.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like they're not going to lower the rates because it's an election year, but they might like fight Chinese companies during an election year.
Yeah. Look how strong we can look.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, let's keep going. Let's get into, well, I guess we're kind of talking about politics already. Trump and Biden, as of yesterday, are officially the nominees for our 2024 presidential election. Welcome to America, the strongest country on the planet. We have just decided who our two big political parties nominees are. Biden's running again at 82, 83 years old, and Trump as well in the 80s. So that's the stack. That's the deck that the American population put in our stack. Gotta love it. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Not sure what there is to really talk about, but here we are. Mikey, is there still space for RFK? The State of the Union was last week. I don't know if you guys saw that. So let's catch up on a little bit of presidential politics, and then let's get into some other things.
How the heck are we here again?
Oh man.
I know. It's like what the hell's going on? I feel like we're in Groundhog Day, man. Dude, man, I want so badly to see RFK, just get elected. And, I was having this conversation the other day with a guy that I shared one of RFK's stories, and this guy reached back and he's like, a vote for RFK is a win for Biden, right? And I was just like, that's the problem. That's the problem with, our mentality around this, is because we're all scared. We're all scared to stand up for what we really actually want, because if we stand up for what we really actually want, then we might get something worse. And I'm just like, I don't know. I might vote for Trump. I'm definitely not voting for Biden, but even if it's wrong, I might vote for RFK. Screw it. I don't have any other thoughts on this other than this. Yeah. This is stupid.
I think it's an easy topic.
It is stupid.
Maddie, what do you think?
I'm with Mike. I mean, I've never been like a Trump train. That's my dude. But because he is in opposition of what I am appalled by and not in support of, I am voting based on what I think is best for America. And I hate that I don't even feel confident in that vote, because I think what Trump stands for is so polarizing that it is not going to be unifying in any capacity. I think there's so many people that stand on either side in opposition of those two figures instead of the underlying root, which is what is best for America. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it just doesn't feel good. Like the fact that we can't come up with better leadership that feels more uniting, and, has a better representation, I think, of the general public is, I guess, perplexing to me that we can't figure that piece out. And I don't know if that is a function of, how corrupt the system is, or how disincentivized people are to want to go and put their hat in the ring. It just feels very heavy, and it feels like the tension is only getting higher and hotter. And I think we're going to be in for a wild ride for the next couple months, because I don't see, I don't see things playing out in a, cordial manner. And then honestly, I think if Trump loses, I think all hell's going to break loose. I think if Biden wins, we're going to continue to spiral in a deeper, more embarrassing direction on the global economy and the global landscape. And so I'm very uncertain about what actually feels right here. But I will say this, I am voting for Trump. And I'm not going to vote for, as much as of the three candidates, I like RFK the best, but I'm not going to vote for him. I'm going to put my vote and my energy behind who I think has the best interest of America right now in their scopes. And I think Trump is the person that I'll be putting my vote behind.
Yeah,
Matty, the thing that's this will be quick. Matty, I agree with that, and I'm probably going to vote for Trump too. I'm scared shitless of what the world looks like after a Trump presidency, because I think, the pendulum swing, it's just going to keep getting wider and wider. And
yeah,
while I think he'll do the best job for what we need, I think we're just going to keep swinging back and forth. And I think just even what we were talking about earlier about capitalism and, mindset change and everything else, if we could truly get a centrist, like as bad as this might sound, but like a Bill Clinton, just somebody that was like willing to talk, and we're just so far past that.
Yeah.
I like seeing the other side of another Trump presidency is so scary to me.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think he's going to do a good job, but because I think we're going to swing so far the other way at some point that I'm just done.
Yeah.
That's the swinging's a good point. I probably, so one thing is I don't quite believe it yet, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I've seen a lot of, my followers and friends that are Democrats going, "Oh my God, now the next 4 years are going to be horrible. Bring on 2028." They are acknowledging like, "Oh God, now it's Trump versus Biden, but now Trump's going to win." One, I still think there might be magic up some sort of a sleeve. It just seems too weird if it does become a Trump Biden again. Two, if it was legal for me to vote, if I was able to actually cast a vote for president, yeah, I'd be voting for Trump. But something that's important for people to hear with that too, like Mike and Matt, what you guys both said is, first, you're not going to look at all the candidates. You're going to look at the candidates that have a chance at winning. And then you're going to vote between them. And that's fair. You want your vote to count. Like you want your vote to matter. Otherwise, it's like going out and standing on the highway to like shut down the highway for an hour over a cause, and then nothing happens. Right. Like, so you could vote for somebody else to like show that you did the right thing. But if you want your vote to count, you choose between who can win and you vote. I know that when Trump first got elected, people thought that there would be, millions of illegal Americans in Guantanamo Bay type facilities. I remember when he first got elected, people were like, the world is over.
He's going to kill us all with nuclear weapons.
He's literally going to turn
his finger on the button.
Yeah. Finger on the button. There's going to be, confinement camps of illegal alien, like all this stuff. And it wasn't as bad as people thought. Like he wasn't as bad as people, and it didn't matter that he wasn't nearly as bad as people thought. They just kept fighting the whole way and say, let's impeach him. Now, I'm an anti-Biden person. Everybody sees it. It also hasn't been as bad as I thought, right? Like it's been like, there's lots of stuff that's been bad. Like, but my worst fears realized of like, we won't have 1031 stuff anymore. We won't have this. We'll have anti-business. I mean, maybe their policies. I think it goes back to so no matter who gets elected, it's not going to be as bad as we think. Like, it's just not. Like, people get so stressed about it. I am the Mike Sage in this one that go, it doesn't really matter. What happens is the reason I would vote for Trump over Biden is because it's about figuring out the rules of the game and then succeeding within those rules. And I'm a more natural winner in Trump's rules. I've actually won pretty well in Biden's rules. We figured out pretty quickly, okay, if he's going to keep juicing the money, if rates are going to get really low and inflation's up, let's go buy $30 million worth of housing. Like I didn't like that policy, but he set the rule and I played within it. So, so part of me goes, okay, Trump's getting elected. Cool. Makes my life a little bit easier. The other part of me says, and if Trump gets elected, I'm getting my presidential pardon before he's out of office. I'm just saying that right here for the first time. Like if he gets elected, I know
We'll
I will
send him
find
this
my way.
episode. We'll send
I
him
will
this
find my
episode.
way to get my presidential pardon. I'll pay him whatever it takes. But that's actually, you do buy those. Back to the other part. But I'll also be kind of surprised if it does work out like that. So anyway, I think hopefully we don't talk about politics too much until Biden like withdraws himself on October 1st and they bring in a new candidate and we get to talk about it. Until then, it's like old stupid news.
Why does
you know what is interesting about Trump as I'm listening to Aaron, like what my concern is not Trump. It's the backlash from him being a president. That's what I'm concerned with. And Aaron, as you were saying that, you know, Trump's first presidency was actually marked by, I was excited for Trump to be the president. It was marked by chaos with, you know, I mean, a Trump presidency might act like he might actually get some stuff done without COVID and all the chaos. Cause I think he's actually a very level-headed guy. And, you know, when you said I think he can do some great things. I'm concerned about the backlash from Trump being president.
Yeah.
That's
but before COVID hit, he was crushing.
You mean Trump derangement syndrome, right, Mike?
Yes.
Maybe.
But I actually like him. I've always said we need a president that doesn't give a shit about the next election. And I mean, you got your guy. Like, I think he'll get some good things done. I'm just concerned about how people
It's
react.
a fair thing. There will be plenty of people that will fight the whole way like they did the first time. Stuff will burn down the day that he gets elected. That's why they boarded stuff up after the last, like, it's unfortunate but I think all we could, so there's the swing in that. But when it comes, again, we've got two people to choose from. Whose rules do we like better?
Does it matter that we have political, I guess, populist unity? Doesn't matter. Does it matter that we can have a safe and peaceful transition of power? Can we lose gracefully? Can we say, okay, that's our president, even though I didn't vote for him, that's our president? Is that matter? Is that important to America? Is it important to what it means to be an American? Does it matter to our strength, to our power, to our ability to fight war, to our ability to lead the world? Does it matter?
Last time that happened was right before Clinton got elected. We used to do peaceful, when you go back and read through history, it used to be peaceful transitions of power. People would congratulate the other running mate. They would now say, like, even though we lost, now he's the president, let's get behind him. And the first time, like, dirty politics, like actually hate politics and like hate ads and negative ads came was when, you know, Bush senior's, you know, renewal president, his second run against Clinton. That's when politics totally changed. I remember how different it was and everything I've studied. And I just don't think people can be like, I remember saying it the day Trump got elected. I posted it on Facebook and it said, okay, so can we now stop playing politics for the next few years? Like, half the country's happy and half the country's sad, but can we just get over it and move forward for the next 3 years? And it was a good, the funny thing was that reminder came up the day after Biden got elected for me. And I'm like, touche, right? Can we just get over it and move on? And I think we're too immature as a country to be able to be okay with it. But that's one of the biggest shames with politics, that once we lose, we can't just lose and say, like, okay, it's all fair. Like Super Bowl, the other team wins and they go, good, you won. It's your deal. We'll, you know, next time we get a chance to battle you, but right now, today's your day. And we don't do that in politics, and it's a shame.
Well, I think the pain has to get bad enough until we really want change, right? And if we go back to what we said, I think everybody here is a libertarian, is a capitalist. You're going to have to get out there and get in the gym and work. Put in the work. If you want to win, put in the work. No complaining, even if you lose. There you go, guys. We didn't hit as many topics as we wanted today, but we are back in action. Good to see you, boys. We are the King's Table. Another really great episode. We have a handful of topics I think we'll push to next week. So let's keep this list going. I don't want to have these things drop, and maybe we'll do some comment processing next time as well, because there's some really good comments going on. But From myself, Ashish Nathu, the Sultan of Sofas, which I'm really catching up on that name, guys.
That-
I
that
love
is
it.
I love
so
it.
good.
I really
It's my
love it.
favorite one of all of them. It's
Really
my
love it.
favorite
I really
one.
love it. The hero of hospitality, Matty Atchison. Thanks, Matty, for your money corner. The sage himself, Mike Ayala. And of course, the trend spotter, Aaron Amuchastegui. We are the King's Table. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time. Peace.
We are the King's Table.
Boom.